you starting to notice that brain fog, that lack of mental sharpness starting to come through? You're starting to forget more things. You're starting to notice that brain fog affecting your day to day. If that's you, then I want to go through the three anchors that really get in the way of brain health long term, and that more importantly, we can actually reverse to build up a sharp mind long term, making sure that you're not forgetting your keys, you're able to stay mentally sharp at work, and really just feel confident that your body is not losing that edge that it used to have. If that's you, if you feel like you or someone close to you is starting to see that decline in their brain health, or you simply want to keep on top of it, tonight's training is going to go into the three most common anchors that really inhibit long-term brain function and start to accelerate that decline. So hope you get a ton out of training, and hope it helps you or someone close to you. So like I said, we're going to go into those three anchors, get an idea of what those biggest three levers are that nobody's talking about, and really taking that time to build up some awareness around. We can have a healthy brain, right? We can make sure that we're keeping on top, we're staying sharp, we're making sure that whether it's at work, home, general, just looking after our brain obviously is required for most things in life. So getting an idea of keeping on top of it is pretty important. All right. So where I want to touch on first, guys, we'll just dive straight into it. Is getting an awareness of, maybe where this is showing up for you. All right. So if you're running into constant brain fog, if you're suffering with low mood, low motivation, you just don't have that drive that you used to have. If you're forgetting where you put things, right, it's starting to become more and more present, that short-term memory loss is starting to get worse. If it's the constant sluggishness, those energy dips, a lot of those things that are coming through, then we really want to look into how this is either affecting or impacting your brain health, right? Getting an idea of building up some of these base steps is where I want to start. Now, if we're going to dive a little bit deeper, and this is going to be some pretty bold claims, but getting an idea of if you're worried about Alzheimer's, if you're starting to see some of those early signs of coming through, this is one of these things that's actually been claimed as type 3 diabetes. And if you're not aware of what diabetes is, it's it's obviously, type 1 is you're born with it. Type 2 is very much a lifestyle disease, right? Type 3 is again going to be lifestyle based, and we're going to look at a lot of the same components. So getting an awareness of where this starts and building up healthy brains, making sure that we can really rebuild a lot of this degeneration is something that we need that I want to touch on today. All right, getting an idea of this cognitive decline. Seems I can't talk. Getting an idea of building that up and even reversing it. All right. So the big ones I want to go through, guys, right away is getting an idea of those anchors and really building a bit more of that base. So if you're watching, guys, I want to get an idea of, cool. So the first one I want to touch on is going to be an awareness of inflammation, right? Now, this is a topic we've touched on a bunch, but getting an idea of how that ties in directly to the brain is really, really helpful. Okay. So getting an idea of the first initial one being stress. Now, I've just got off a call with some of our new clients coming on board, and really looking at the importance of stress and how many different areas that really comes up for you. All right. So taking that time to look at both the psychological stress, right? How are we taking that time to react to different situations, not getting pissed off in traffic and worrying about it all day, or taking that time to simply breathe can go a really, really long way. The second part could be the training aspect, right? We seem to be seeking more stress, and it comes in the form of more types of spin classes, circuit classes, just jumping around a bunch rather than getting effective training in is quite an important and quite prominent one as well. And then the third one here, we're looking at that digestive stress. And that's a really, really big one that comes through that's causing really, coming back to the whole topic of leaky gut, right? There's a lot of inflammatory markers coming through simply the foods we eat. And if we're not taking that time to look at the quality of the food we're having and looking at foods that are causing that inflammatory response for us, then we're really missing out on a lot of energy. We're missing out on a lot of mental sharpness, and it's really not going to be optimal for a majority of our health, okay? The next one is going to be looking at low sleep quality or slow sleep volume. So taking that time to get an awareness of how do we build that sleep back up through those basic practices of improving our health, improving our night routine, improving those main causes of poor sleep, like light exposure, right? Getting an awareness to a lot of these components is really, really big at bringing inflammation down. If we're not getting at least 6 hours of good, high quality sleep a night, and we're waking up during the night, we're waking up feeling sluggish, then that's going to be a massive cause of really not being able to flush out that excessive inflammation in the body. All right. And then the last one, which is going to be a big component of today's conversation, is an awareness of blood sugar imbalances, right? If we're not controlling that base, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more, then it's really going to have an adverse effect on the brain. So this isn't just the highs, it's also the lows. So if we're eating sugary foods all the time and we're spiking our insulin and then we're dropping it right down as well, both ends of that spectrum are really quite toxic on the body and are going to cause excess inflammation and therefore have a really, really degenerative effect on the brain. All right. The second one here is going to be toxicity, which is very much tied into the inflammation base. And the big thing that I want you to get an awareness of here is that we're not going to remove toxicity entirely, right? We live in a toxic environment in the best ways possible, but getting an idea of with the situations we're in, we've got chemicals in the paints on the walls. We've got chemicals in the foods and hormones and antibiotics and all sorts of things in the foods. We've got the waters we drink. We've got an awareness of the type of water we're having, getting an idea of the cleaning products we're using, the beauty products on our face or skin or whatever it might be, getting an idea of things like asbestos in the house or paints, like I mentioned, right? Getting an idea of how many toxins we really are exposed to can get really overwhelming really quickly. So the goal is not to remove it entirely. It's simply to be aware of it and do your best at getting an idea of what those main culprits are for you. Now, for most people, unless you're working in a corporate setting where, sorry, in a commercial setting where there's a lot of paints and a lot of toxins in that environment, which is massive, we see that a lot, we're going to be coming back to day-to-day what we consume, right? Water and food are going to be those two main ones. So a simple filter can be a really good place to start. Looking again at identifying the quality of the foods we're having rather than just going for the cheapest chicken or the cheapest spinach, whatever it might be, goes a really, really long way when you start to look at the pesticides and the toxins that are those cheaper meats, cheaper foods are exposed to. Okay. So taking that time to really build that base up goes a really, really long way when we're looking at that toxicity component. Not only is it going to make a massive difference with you being able to drop the body fat, increase muscle mass, and improve your energy, the ability to get that brain functioning at its high level is going to be absolutely impossible if there's a high toxic load in the body, right? It's going to be really, really impossible to get high functioning fuel to that brain with that inflammatory response to a lot of toxicity in the body, all right? The next one, or the last one of those three anchors we're going to be touching on, is an awareness of insulin, right? Now, as I mentioned before, we're getting this awareness of seeing that things like Alzheimer's is being claimed as type 3 diabetes, meaning with poor sugar control, our susceptibility to getting Alzheimer's and a decline in brain function is increased massively. Now, this is something that you really, really want to pay attention to if we're seeing something like Alzheimer's that's present in the family currently, right? Whether it's on one side, if it's on both sides, then this is something that you should be focusing on 100%, because your likelihood of having that come through is certainly going to have a family element to it, right? So taking that time to look at your insulin control is a really, really big component that we look at with a lot of our nutrition practices in our training or in our coaching program, to firstly look at something what we call metabolic flexibility, right? And all that means is getting this awareness of, can we use both sugars and fats as protein, or carbohydrates and fats as protein, right? And the problem is most people are really, really, so dominant and so reliant on carbohydrates that they never really properly use fats as fuel, right? So they do these dips and dives with their insulin control, with their glucose in their body, which is causing a lot of damage on that brain. The second one is those constant carb cravings, which is leading us to have those sugary, those refined carbohydrates. There's a lot of, there could be a little bit of debate about the protein amounts or the fats that we should be having in the diet. But one thing that isn't debated is the amount of refined carbohydrates that makes it into our diet. So taking that time to really do a bit of an audit on how often that's coming into your diet, into that base, is going to be really, really helpful. All right. So, starting with that base, getting awareness of those initial points goes a really, really long way. So the big part here, guys, is where does it start? What do we really focus on, right? Taking the time to build up an awareness of, if we want to look at not just improving our energy, our body composition, all these good things, we actually want to be looking at where that starts and what that base, that focus will be of trying to get your body back. And where I think we can really take some time to look at this is what we would call leaky gut, right? This ability to take in, if we're not digesting foods properly, we're not taking that time to break down foods, and we're eating foods that are pro-inflammatory to us, then we're getting a lot more inflammation in the body. We're getting a lot more toxicity. We're getting in the way of hormones really functioning well, all right? So if we really want to care about cognitive performance, as I said again, as a bit of a recap, a bit of a focus on where we should start, the first one, which should be really taking that time to refine those lower carbohydrates, right? Really taking a time to audit how often we're having those carbs, and the more sugary the ones we want to be careful of, right? So by no means are we demonizing carbs. Carbohydrates can be very helpful for calming the system down, recovering, all this good stuff. But taking that time to make sure that not every day we pick up a donut, or not every day we add in this sugary drink, right? Taking that time to make those changes, not just from a body composition standpoint, but your mental and cognitive performance goes a really, really long way. Now, exercise seems to become this really, really serious, scary thing, but simply taking that time to come back to 20 minutes a day of a simple walk goes a really, really long way. All right. If we get that movement, again, body composition is massive, but looking at how much that's going to elevate our mood, elevate our mental cognitive sharpness, goes a long way. The third one here is identifying those foods that actually cause that issue, right? Taking the time to look at, okay, I'm not feeling great on this food, even if it looks to be healthy, right? If it's a potato or it's a whey protein or whatever it might be, taking that time to identify, I don't feel good on that food, and starting to take action on adjustments in nutrition goes a really long way, right? The next one here is that prioritizing of you and your day. Now, this is a huge component that we talk about a lot, and really trying to make sure that the skill set of long-term sustainable health change lasts, is making sure that you're actually putting you back in the day. And I think one of the big components of making sure that you show up consistently, you perform at a high level, is making sure that you're actually prioritizing that ability to put you in the day. All right. And then the last one, if you really want to take yourself seriously, if you want to make sure your performance is staying on top, we simply want to make sure you're making the most of the effort you're putting in, is actually get a specialist, get a coach in your corner, and make sure that you're taking that time to, for us, we navigate things like your training nutrition, but you dive deeper into things like your hormones, your blood work, getting an idea of building this base back up and restructuring what those focus points really should be, right? So we're getting an idea of not just, as I said, elevating your body composition, your energy, but if we want that mental sharpness to be there, we want to show up consistently every day, you've got that person in your corner to make sure that's happening, right? And if you build that structure, those sort of people really thrive off building that direction, that clarity to make sure they move forward, right? So if that's you, that's certainly something I'm more than happy to have a chat with you later, all right? But a little added bonus, something that I would start on, if this is something that you're building some of those bases, you feel like you're covering those well, then diving into these as a little bit of added bonus can be really helpful. The first one should be a fish oil. Now, big one is we're looking at the EPA and DHA ones that are really, really high, rather than just a supermarket fish oil. Pretty good general rule of thumb for supplements is don't buy them from the supermarket. Actually going, we go practitioner only for our clients, but getting an idea of simply taking high quality products goes a long way. Things like fish oil or just oils in general, taking that time to get a dark glass container rather than a plastic, clear stuff goes a really, really long way with all of your oils. Okay. So if you go down to your supermarket next time, you look at that oil shelf, you'll see that pretty much 80% of those oils are rancid. They're basically useless before they even get off the shelf, which is a real problem with this toxicity filled society, is taking that time to simply be more conscious of the oils we're consuming. Next one here is collagen. Now, this is massive that we use as a really nice protein boost for a lot of our clients, but also looking at the benefits of things like collagen, of glycine, and a lot of these amino acids that we don't usually get in the right amounts in our foods, right? So taking that time, if we're not getting a lot of organ meats in, which is for most people, by all means add in some heart or some kidney or some liver. But if you're not getting those in, or you can't stomach them, then taking the time to get something in like your collagen can be really, really helpful to rebuild that gut lining, improve neural plasticity at some level, which is fascinating, and really just rebuilding those blocks of ultimate health. All right. And then the last one, when we're looking at a non-stimulant version of a really, really good cognitive enhancer, my fallback is always Alpha GPC. We've got a bunch of guys on our team that use it. We've got a bunch of clients that really use this a lot. And I find if you from a non-stimulant standpoint, it's a fantastic supplement from a cognitive enhancement standpoint as well. All right. So I hope that was helpful, guys. I know that's a really short one, but I just want to make sure that when we dive into brain health being a pretty massive topic, when we're looking at this awareness of building back the core components of really making sure you can show up as your best, and make sure that fogginess, that blurriness when we're trying to show up to work, we're trying to really perform at a high level, the last thing we want is to feel like our body's holding us back. All right. So if it's on that sharpness side, if it's building up an awareness of some of those initial points, it really comes back to let's build those foundations properly. Let's give yourself a fighting chance and make sure of things like your insulin control and overall, things like HbA1c in one of your blood works or just overall glucose control markers should be a really, really good place to start to build back that awareness of brain health and making sure you show up sharper. All right. So hope you enjoyed that, guys. Hope that was something that was valuable for you, and hope you had an incredible week. Talk soon. Bye.